Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Dylan Rounds? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. Dylan Rounds was born on August 1, 2002, and was raised in Rigby, Idaho. This is in the eastern part of the state. He lived with his parents, Justin Rounds and Candace Cooley, as well as two younger siblings. Dylan grew up on a farm and developed an appreciation for the farming lifestyle. All he ever wanted to be was a farmer. For him, the sooner he could get started, the better. Dylan and his grandfather became partners in a business venture involving land near Lucin, Utah, which is in Box Elder County. This land, which is classified as desert, is considered undesirable for farming, but maybe the price was right. Dylan worked the land for 2 summers in preparation for planting his first crop in the spring of 2022. There was a camper on the property where Dylan would stay when he was working on the farm. About 5 miles northwest of the camper, there was a shed that Dylan used in his farming venture. It wasn't on his property, but he had permission to use it. He would store his grain truck in that shed. In a trailer on this property lived a man named James Brenner. He did not have permission to be there, rather he was a squatter. He would occasionally help Dylan with various farm work. James Brenner had been born on December 2, 1963. Sometime in the early 1990s, he was arrested in the state of Maryland and charged with attempted murder. Ultimately, he was convicted of malicious shooting. In 2012, James was sentenced to 33 months in prison after being convicted of being a felon in possession of a firearm. In February of 2021, he was charged with aggravated assault after allegedly attacking a victim with a lawn chair. When will society gain the will to end these senseless lawn furniture attacks? First, it starts with lawn chair assault, then it progresses to offenses like carrying a concealed hammock, unlawful use of a garden gnome, impersonating a patio dining set, and possession of umbrella tables with intent to distribute. Moving back to the story, as James Brenner was squatting on the property near Dylan's farm, there was an active warrant out for his arrest. Perhaps James was out in the middle of nowhere to hide from the authorities. Now moving to the timeline of the incident. On May 27, 2022, 19-year-old Dylan planted seeds on his farm late into the night. The next morning, May 28, he spoke to his grandmother on the phone. Dylan said it was starting to rain and he needed to move his grain truck into the shed. This is the last contact anyone would have with Dylan Rounds. He was reported missing 2 days later, on May 30, and the police started an investigation. Officers and Dylan's family members searched Dylan's farm and the property surrounding it. The police found his boots behind a pile of dirt. They noticed that one of the boots had a blood stain on it. Dylan's pickup truck was parked right outside his camper. The truck was locked, which was out of the ordinary. His father broke one of the windows to gain access to the truck, but did not find anything there that was useful in the search for Dylan. Similarly, nothing helpful was found in Dylan's camper. In early June, after volunteers searched the farm, Dylan's semi-automatic pistol was found on the bathroom counter of his camper. The magazine of the weapon was next to it. Family members were positive that the pistol was not there when they first searched the camper. The next day, the key fob to Dylan's truck was found on the same bathroom counter. It was like somebody was sneaking into the camper and leaving evidence behind. The police took custody of the pistol and the key fob. There were no fingerprints on them. On June 2, a family member spotted James Brenner cleaning out the shed. He was putting garbage bags into a truck. They thought this was unusual because the shed had always been full of trash. Why was James trying to clean it up at this particular moment? 8 days later, the police learned about the warrant for the arrest of James Brenner. On June 11, 2022, the police arrested him. The next day, he was released on his own recognizance and returned to his career as a squatter. On June 16, the police searched the shed near James Brenner's trailer. They found several items typically used with muzzle-loading firearms, including ball ammunition, ignition caps, black powder, and speed loaders. They did not seize these items, rather they simply took photographs of them. 4 days later, on June 20, a neighbor of James Brenner told the police that on June 7, James brought 3 black powder guns to his residence and asked him to keep them safe. The neighbor asked him why. James said he needed to do this for his own safety because the last time he had trouble with the law, they took everything from him. The next day, the police spoke to the neighbor again. He mentioned that James also left a Winchester Model 69 .22 caliber bolt-action rifle. The police returned to the trailer where James lived and seized the muzzle-loading related items they had photographed on June 16. This time they also found a muzzle-loading firearm. They seized this as well. James Brenner was arrested for being a felon in possession of a firearm. About 9 months later, on March 3, 2023, James Brenner was charged with aggravated murder and abuse or desecration of a human body in connection with the death of Dylan Rounds. The police have not found Dylan's body, but they are confident that James murdered him. Now moving to my analysis. The case of Dylan Rounds is somewhat controversial. This case became extremely popular on social media, especially with psychics. Many people are unconvinced that James Brenner is the killer and have proposed all types of alternate theories of the crime. Many of these theories were highly creative. This brings me to the question, is James Brenner guilty of murder as the state has alleged? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that James is guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Dylan worked on a farm that was extremely remote. It is not unusual for farms to be in rural areas, but this was beyond rural. This farm was in the middle of a desert. The closest town was 25 miles away across the state line in Nevada. James Brenner was one of the few people who lived in the area. He was in regular contact with Dylan. James had an extensive criminal history. At the time of Dylan's disappearance, he was wanted by the police for aggravated assault. Dylan's disappearance was out of the ordinary. He had never disappeared before. He was extremely excited to be a farmer and had a lot to look forward to. The harvest was coming up soon. This was an exciting time for Dylan. He was not depressed, and he never talked about running away and starting a new life. It is reasonable to believe that he is dead. Dylan's family members reported that, not long after Dylan's disappearance, James removed bags of garbage from the shed and put them into a truck. Based on the condition of the shed, it's hard to believe that James ever cleaned any trash out of it. His timing was suspicious. Dylan's cell phone stopped operating not long after he talked to his grandmother on the day he disappeared, May 28, 2022. It was last active near a pond not far from the trailer where James lived. The police searched this pond and found Dylan's cell phone. This is not a place where Dylan would have put his phone. Data from the cell phone indicate that Dylan was near James on the day he disappeared. A time-lapse video was captured on Dylan's phone. This video was recorded a half hour after Dylan ended the call with his grandmother. The video featured James cleaning a firearm. He appeared to have bloodstains on his arms and on his shirt. The police were able to find the shirt featured in the video. It contained Dylan's DNA. According to a neighbor, James tried to hide muzzle-loading firearms. The police found a muzzle-loading firearm and other items related to muzzle-loading firearms in the trailer where James lived. As a felon, James was not allowed to own any type of firearm. On Dylan's boots, which the police discovered the day he was reported missing, there was DNA from Dylan and from James. According to the police, James made statements to them which can be proven false based on the evidence collected. He definitely lied to the authorities. Moving to the exculpatory factors, Dylan Rounds has never been found. He may not be dead. He may have run away and started a new life. Another theory is that he simply wandered off into the desert and died. Dylan was only 19. He was not familiar with the ways of the world. Perhaps he did not appreciate the dangers of getting lost in that type of environment. It's possible that someone other than James was the killer. Maybe James was just cleaning up for some other homicidal offender. That's pretty much it for exculpatory factors. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I think that James Brenner is guilty of murder? Yes, in my opinion, he is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. As I mentioned, the case has attracted a lot of controversy, but based on the evidence, it should not have. This case is actually pretty cut and dry. It's hard to ignore the DNA evidence connecting James to Dylan and the time-lapse video of James cleaning a gun. Everything seems to point back to James as the killer. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. James Brenner was an impulsive and irresponsible criminal who had no respect for the law. Despite being a convicted felon, he possessed firearms. On May 28, 2022, James became angry with Dylan for some reason, or decided he wanted to steal something from Dylan. Either way, James approached Dylan with a firearm and shot him at close range. As he was cleaning up the crime scene, James accidentally hit something on Dylan's phone that caused the phone to record. He ended up recording himself cleaning the gun. This is consistent with James Brenner's level of functioning. He is such an incompetent criminal, he recorded himself with the victim's phone. James disposed of Dylan's body somewhere in the desert. The body will probably never be recovered. Because this case started out under such mysterious circumstances, it drew the attention of social media influencers, including self-proclaimed psychics. As usual, the vast majority of these influencers did not generate a meaningful analysis, and the psychics simply aggravated people with false claims. Now moving to my final thoughts. What lesson can be learned from this case? I think this case was really about a young man who was extremely driven toward one goal. He wanted to be a farmer so badly that he took unnecessary risks. Dylan had focused all his attention on farming and did not really understand how the world worked. He didn't have the experience with people to be able to figure out when they might be dangerous. Viewing everybody as friendly and safe put Dylan in a vulnerable position. James was a dangerous individual who had a history of violence. He felt safe to kill because he was in such a remote area. Both Dylan and James loved the Utah desert for different reasons. The vast expanse brought peace and harmony for Dylan and homicidal opportunity for James. Those are my thoughts on the case of Dylan Rounds. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.